My guest today on Creative Inspired Happy is Margarita Montimore, best-selling author of Oona Out of Order, which was a Good Morning America book club pick. Her latest novel, The Dollhouse Academy, is out now. Today, we talk about pep talks for yourself to get through the ups and downs of publishing, how many rejections she weathered before landing a book deal, handling professional jealousy of other writers, especially if they're friends, writing tricky narrative structures like multiple POVs or timelines, and so much more. Creative Inspired Happy is a video podcast about incredibly successful writers and others in the book world, and how they rose out of obscurity to build fulfilling careers, hosted by me, New York Times bestselling author Evelyn Skye. To join our community and get more writing advice, creativity challenges, and more, follow the link in the episode notes. I hope you enjoy the show. Hi, Margarita. Welcome to Creative Inspired Happy.
Hi, Evelyn. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just so excited to talk to you today.
I think we're going to have a great conversation. I have so many questions for you. I'm a huge fan of your work, and I just finished the Dollhouse Academy last night, so I have a lot of thoughts, and I will try really hard not to spoil it for the audience.
Okay, awesome. I'm so glad. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm here to give you all the spoiler-free answers that I can.
Excellent. In the Dollhouse Academy, I keep wanting to say in the dollhouse because I felt like I was in the dollhouse.
That was in a previous title, actually.
Really? Oh my
Yes.
gosh. Okay, good. I feel like maybe I intuited it.
Maybe.
So the Dollhouse Academy, I feel like, has a little bit of a different vibe from some of your other work. And I want to get into that. But first, I want to delve kind of back into how you began as a writer. So your first book was Asleep from Day in 2018, then Oona Out of Order in 2020, Acts of Violet in 2022, and then now the Dollhouse Academy in 2025. So was there a moment that you knew that you wanted to be a writer, or how did your career kind of unfold?
Oh, well, there's the moment that I wanted to be a writer, but then many years before there was an unfolding of any kind career-wise. So, I mean, we're going back to when I was 16 years old. In high school, I had this creative writing class that I'm not exaggerating when I say this class changed my life, because I had this amazing instructor, Kes Quinn, who created this atmosphere. Like, remember the Breakfast Club, how you had all of these different people and yet they were in this space for a certain amount of time and they all connected despite their differences? That is what this class was several times a week. It was magic. It was like the popular kids and the weirdos and the like jocks and everybody together writing from the heart, and just it gave me a voice that I never had before. It let kind of all of my teen angst just explode onto the page. And it was really, I had written diaries and stories and poems before that, but this was the first time that I felt so just fired up and full of like passion and creativity that I knew this is what I want to do with my life. And so I went to college for creative writing because that's super practical. And then my senior year, when I realized this is not setting me up for a career, I kind of started to panic a little bit. And instead of pursuing a career in publishing right out of school, I like moved to London on a whim and just lived there for a year and a half, and then came back and then slowly started working in publishing, first on the agent side, then publisher side, thinking, well, I will learn all about the business of books. I love books anyway. So, if I can't write them, then I will still kind of live among books and make my life still dedicated to them. But at the same time, of course, I was like, I'm going to make connections and I'm going to get published and be a big shot author. Yay. Did not work out like that at all. And then I just couldn't find my way in publishing. I tried kind of exploring these different avenues and didn't feel like there was a career path on the agent or publisher side that was right for me. And part of me felt like, oh, whatever the career that's out there for me, it probably doesn't exist yet. And it ended up being social media for a while. And then I got extremely lucky because I met the man who is now my husband, and we were kind of long-ish distance. I was in New York and Brooklyn. He's outside of Philly and South Jersey. And we kind of did that for a number of years, thinking he's going to move to New York. But then I was just getting really burnt out from my careers. I was at one point like managing a team of 12 social media managers and just doing very well on paper, but emotionally and spiritually just feeling like I remember the moment where everything changed. We had this exercise at work writing our dream resume. And so my dream resume after like that current job involved working at Netflix and then working at HBO or vice versa. And then retiring early and writing books for the rest of my life. And when I was doing that dream resume, I realized like, A, I don't want to be working where I'm working right now. And B, I really want to just fast forward to like that last item on the resume. So my now husband said to me when we were figuring out logistics of, engagement and marriage and moving, he's like, look, if you want to write books, then come move down to Jersey with me and you can write books. I'll support you. And that's like being handed a lottery ticket. Like, who would say no to that? Like, oh, you want to try to make your biggest dream come true? Or do you want to like be in a really stressful office job where you're going to burn out every 6 months? So I moved to Jersey and it took 3 books and 3.5 years before I got my first real kind of publishing deal, which was Oona Out of Order. And, I made it. But during that time, it's funny because a lot of people think Oona is my first book, but I actually self-published Asleep from Day before that, just to feel like I wanted to start building an audience and I wanted to feel like I was in control of something while I was fielding all of these rejections for Oona. Literally, I'm talking hundreds of rejections. And then I realized book publishing is a very intricate, complicated, time-consuming business, and I'd rather be writing books. So I'm going to just keep fighting the good fight and hope that I find my way in traditional publishing. And a week from today, and on February 11th, my third book with Flatiron Books, The Dollhouse Academy, is getting released. And I still feel like I'm in a dream every day that I get to do this for a living.
I love that. And, I think it's so true that many of us take such a circuitous route to get to our dream. But I love that your then husband, was like, you know what, let's just make this happen. That idea of why don't we just fast forward to the part that you really want instead of taking all that time. Was it scary to actually to leave behind your careers though, even though you might not have enjoyed it, it's still like something you've worked so long to build up that real resume that you had, right? And to give that up
Yes.
and move forward on your dream resume.
It was terrifying. And just to set the record straight, he's still my husband and I dedicate every single book to him. But I don't know if I said then husband, but
Oh
I
no, I
mean,
think I said then husband. I meant
you
then.
did, but I don't know if
So
you
sorry.
said it because I said it before. So
I meant now husband.
yeah. He is still alive and kicking and in my life, and it was very hard for me for a number of reasons. One, because I lived in cities my whole life and I was moving to the suburbs. That was the easiest part of it because, again, do you want to do the thing you love the most and do that 24/7, or try to steal an hour here and there when you're not completely overwhelmed and stressed out? So that was a no-brainer. For me, the hardest part was I consider myself very independent and I was proud of the career that I built, and the fact that I could support myself, and even in New York where it can be very challenging. And so to go from that to feeling like I was depending on somebody and worrying constantly, what if they bet on the wrong horse? What if I let him down and myself down? And, what if I really was essentially trying to be a professional lottery winner. And you could put in all of the work, you can be really, really good, and sometimes your numbers still don't get called. I know because I have seen it happen with other writers. So yeah, it was terrifying, but the only way that I could kind of work through the fear was to just keep writing and stay tenacious and not give up, even though, my goodness, there were so many times where I came this close to just shelving Oona Out of Order and just not doing anything. So yeah, so and at the same time too, I was freelancing as a editor and book coach, and I found that working with other writers on the other side of it also really helped me fine tune myself as a writer and finding my writing community. All of these things contributed to finally, eventually, years down the line, getting that breakthrough.
It really does take patience, and I know that as a new writer, when I was a new writer, I didn't want to hear that. I wanted to believe that I was going to be the Twilight story where I had a dream, I wrote it into a book, and then I was a millionaire, like, next year, right? And for most of us, it just takes time and patience, and like you said, finding community, and just working on your craft. Speaking of community, as you know, Creative Inspired Happy is not just a podcast, we're also a community. And I have some questions for you from our community of writers and readers. So the first one is from Carrie R. And she was wondering if you remember how many rejections or passes did you get from agents or from editors before you got, let's say, your book deal with Oona Out of Order?
If we're counting all of the rejections that I also got on A Sleep from Day, I would say probably over 500.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, I'm really stubborn. I don't give up. And if we're just counting Una, I would say I think over 300. And I do want to also clarify to say that during this process, and I love talking about my failure, because there were so many times in the midst of getting all of those like requests and then rejections and getting my hopes up and then dashed, I was trying to tell myself this is just going to be part of my origin story. This is the story I am going to tell other writers and other creative people who need this encouragement, because I found encouragement from other people's stories. So this involved, oh gosh, at least a dozen revisions, including, and this made the biggest difference in the world, rewriting basically the last third of the book. And when I did that, I sent it to like another 50 agents and ended up with 4 offers of representation within a matter of weeks. And then once I signed and this is like over a year and a half, during which time I took off 6 months to self-publish a different book and then rewrote a third of the book and all of this time. And then within weeks, maybe a month or two, Oona Out of Order went to auction and sold. So kind of it took a long time for things to happen very, very quickly. And I think that happens to other writers, a lot of other writers that I've connected with, I've noticed.
Yeah. How did you know when it was ready? Or maybe a better question, how did you know when it was not ready yet?
I didn't, which is why I got so many rejections. I am very well. You get to a point where you think it's ready, and even I sent it out to so many readers, and it was just the feedback I got was the most incredible feedback I ever got from beta readers and critique partners. And even like I just knew this is the one, this is the one. So when I was getting all of the rejections coming back, and like they were just those really nice, frustrating, impossible rejections of like, I love it, I can't, I just didn't connect, or I something about it just isn't quite there yet and I can't say what. And then
Mm-hmm.
when finally one agent found the thing that wasn't there yet, I thought this will require so much overhaul, I can't do it. I set it aside, and I was like, maybe this book is just done. And one day I was just like sitting quietly. It's always in the quiet moments. And the light bulb went off, and I was like, no, I can do it and I will do it. And once that all kind of came together, then I felt really, really, really sure, like more sure than ever.
So this is, I think, a good transition to Hallie B's question, and it's kind of a two-part question. You can answer both or just one of them, which was, what was the hardest part of your author journey, or what do you wish you had known? And you might have answered this already. What's your self-pep talk to keep going? And maybe the pep talk was, this is part of my origin story. But like through all that, and then knowing that eventually Oona Out of Order went to auction, became a Good Morning America book club pick. I think I might have discovered it from Book of the Month Club. It was just everywhere, and you had to persist through so much.
Mm.
What do you wish you had known, I guess, back then? And how did you keep going?
That is a great, great question. And Una wasn't a book of the month pick, but it was on various like library journal reads and
Okay.
Indie Next
I
pick.
must have
And
found it somewhere there.
I, I mean, Good Morning America made my career. The hardest part, honestly, was the 3.5 years. I really thought it was going to happen so much faster because I was dedicating myself 100% to it. And I just thought that I mean, it's hubris. I thought I wrote this really great book and that, it's going to get picked up. And of course, we're off to the races. I was part of this writing contest, Pitch Wars, and it was this really fantastic community. And you would submit your work and you'd get these mentors, and then there was an agent showcase. And then, but in the meantime, every year the Pitch Wars mentees, they basically created their own little writing community. So I found my writing family through that. And one by one, once the agent showcase happened, I did not get an agent. I mean, I got a couple of requests, but I didn't get any offers. I still had to query, but I saw one by one all these writers getting agents, getting book deals. And on one hand, it kept me hopeful. And then on the other hand, you do get to a point where you wonder, when is it my turn? When is it my turn? And for me, I think, and it's a pep talk I still give myself to this day, because I think wherever you are in your career as a writer, unless you're like Stephen King, maybe, you always still, there's still new goals. There's still, you want to outdo yourself in terms of the quality of your work, in terms of its reach. And so I always think of this Steve Martin quote: be so good they can't ignore you. And I said that to myself as I was writing book 2 and book 3. I say that to myself. I'm saying it to myself as I'm writing my new book now, that, you just have to keep pushing yourself, not only to keep going and remain tenacious, but also to really maintain that level of quality for yourself, that you are creating what you hope is going to be your best work.
And
And
how
then
do
in
you?
terms of what I wish I knew, I'm sorry to
Oh no,
write the
please.
second part of that question. Um, I think I wish I knew just how it can sometimes feel very arbitrary. It sometimes feels like really talented people are getting overlooked, or just that sometimes there's just no rhyme or reason to it in some way, in terms of not only what gets picked up by agents and book deals, but what becomes really popular, what breaks through. And so I think this is something I still really, really struggle with, but the expression comparison is the thief of joy, that you really need to keep your eyes on your own paper and focus on doing you and doing the best version of you, as opposed to seeing what is happening with everyone else. It's important to know the market for sure, but in terms of modeling your career on somebody else's, your career is going to be unique to you. And so try to just stay in that lane and just do everything that you can do without really setting yourself up for many, many disappointments by looking at, there's always going to be somebody doing better than you. So try to avoid that.
I think that's so true. And I've experienced that myself on social media. For example, I will be on Instagram and, even at this stage in my career, I will do like ridiculous things where I get jealous of a good friend because she had a cover reveal. And it is not time for me to have a cover reveal. My book is not coming out yet. And yet I feel this jealousy, and then the next week someone else has a cover reveal and I start feeling like I'm somehow falling behind. And it's absolutely ludicrous, right? Because there's no rhyme or reason to
Mm-hmm.
it, but that's kind of what it does when you start comparing yourself to other people. I have actually a great Pitch Wars story as well. It's so cool that you were part of that because I was part of that community pretty early on as well. I was a
Mm-hmm.
mentor for a couple years, and the way you, as you know, the way you become a Pitch Wars mentor is if you already have an agent, because the goal is to help aspiring writers get agents. And then at the end, like you were saying, there's a showcase and agents can come and, choose from those writers, right? So I was mentoring a writer. Her work was amazing. And then she did get an agent, and that was great. I didn't have a book deal yet, right? I was agented, but without a book deal. She landed a book deal that year before I ever got one. And I was thinking, wait, but I'm the mentor. I'm supposed to go first. It just
The
doesn't
same
always
thing happened
happen
to
that
me.
way. Yeah?
The same exact thing happened to me. I was a mentor for, I think, 2 years. And fun fact, and I don't know if we were both mentors at the same time, but best-selling huge superstar author Rebecca Yarros was a mentor at the same years that I was a part of it. So it's actually been really incredible to see not just her, but other writers from that pool of authors really kind of develop amazing careers. But yes, that exact same thing. Like I got this great mentee. She got snatched up by an agent while I was in the midst of getting my Oona rejections. And like really, really, I was getting just like one after another because I'm very impatient. So it's very hard I'm not going to just like send out 5 queries at a time. I send out like 20 at a time, even if I've like personalized all of them. And then she got her book deal so quickly, and the book did really well. And it was one of those things. And actually, it is something that in some ways inspired the Dollhouse Academy, that professional envy of you. Of course, you're so happy for these writers that you know and that you've worked with, or just who you admire, or just who you like as a person and know are so talented, that we've all put in the hours, the blood, sweat, and tears. But at the same time, we're human. And if we're at a point where we're really struggling and we're just drowning in rejections, it's so difficult to kind of set aside those ugly feelings and have like that pure, I'm so happy for you, like as I wipe away my
I
tears.
know, it's so true. Do you have a trick to help yourself when you feel that kind of jealousy?
Whew, I think I kind of fight it with love. And so the same kind, a similar thing is happening to me, sort of like an author that I know who is just phenomenal. Actually, she submitted to Pitch Wars and her work was so good. I said, you don't need a mentor, you need an agent. You should be out there querying. And she also got a book deal and an agent and a book deal before I did. And I was like, yeah, but she's good. She deserves it. And her latest book has been just everywhere. And, just it's been I just feel so happy because I feel like she deserves it. And so for me, it's been just contributing to that chorus of this book is awesome. Everybody should go read it. And that makes me feel good because I feel like I'm fighting that ugly envy with love. And so like I feel like this is what a rising tide, what is it? A rising tide lifts all boats. So like I want to be part of that tide that lifts her because it makes me feel more elevated and like a better person also.
Yeah, no, I really, really appreciate that because I think it's true. You can't stop whatever that first emotion is that you feel because we are human, as you mentioned, right? But the reaction, you get to choose how you react to it. And I really love the idea of fighting it with love. Okay, I have one more question for you about Una Out of Order, and then we're going to talk about the Dollhouse Academy. So the question is, and I don't know if you want to answer this, but Una Out of Order was what a lot of people call your breakout hit. Do you get tired of people always talking about that book? Do you ever get that feeling like, hey guys, look, I also wrote another book in the meantime and now I have another one out? Like, does that get tired or is it kind of great?
Never, ever, ever does it get tired. Honestly, anybody talking about any of my books is just such a thrill to me that I'm never going to be like, oh, Una again. Una is the reason that I have a career as an author. And so I talk about it more. Go, please feel free. Go on Instagram, go on Book talk about it all you like. And when people actually reach out to me and tell me how much the book has meant to them, like it's so gratifying. And I would never kind of turn away from that. And I will also say though that when I do get somebody who mentions, I mean, my self-published book, that's by the by. Anytime somebody says they've actually read every book I've written, blows my mind because, I have authors that I worship and I haven't read all of their books. And then, but Acts of Violet, my follow up to Oona, I mean, they're all standalone books. Whenever I see on Instagram or somebody mentions how much they love Violet, I always say, like, oh, I feel like Oona gets so much of the spotlight that anytime I see Violet get the love, like, it means that much more to me. So no, it's all amazing and special, and I'm thankful for it every single time.
Ah, fantastic. Okay, but now we're going to talk about your fourth book, baby, The Dollhouse Academy. So this is the arc that I'm showing on the screen if anyone's just listening and not actually watching this. So the hardcover will be out or is out by the time we publish this episode, and it will be even prettier than this. Tell us about the premise of The Dollhouse Academy. Ooh, do you have one? Did you get your author
Oh my God,
copies?
within arm's reach. Here it is.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, I think they did an amazing job on the cover. I love it so much.
Yeah, your
I'm sorry,
covers are
could you
always
please?
so vibrant. Tell us about the premise of Dollhouse Academy.
Okay, the Dollhouse Academy it's set in the late 90s, 1990s, and it is about two best friends, Grace and Ramona, who are invited to join this very secretive elite boarding school, but also talent incubator called the Dollhouse Academy, where some of the biggest stars are made. The biggest television shows and movies and pop singers are coming out of this Dollhouse Academy. And so once they get there, things kind of take a stranger and darker turn. And at the same time, one of the friends, Grace, she finds success very, very quickly, and in just in enormous quantities, whereas Ramona really, really struggles. And it puts a lot of tension on their friendship. And then in between that are diary entries from the Dollhouse's biggest star, Ivy Gordon, chronicling her early career in show business and the 16 years she spent at the Dollhouse, and has been just left traumatized and feeling like a prisoner. And so we're getting all of kind of the history of, like, and slowly finding out what's really going on there.
Oh my gosh, I just finished reading this book. It is so good, everyone. You have to pick up a copy. I want to know, how did you get this idea, and why did you know that this was the one to write? And I know that in your acknowledgments you mentioned that you were obsessed with child actor memoirs. Is that where it started? Or yeah, how did this is it's different from like Oona Out of Order or your other books. So tell us about that
Mhm.
process.
Yes, it definitely that planted the seed, reading all of these different memoirs, and at the same time, just my real, like, fascination with the old Hollywood studio system and, like, the current K-pop star factories, and just this idea of the way that fame and celebrity is turned into a commodity, and the control that's involved. And so I knew that was something that I wanted to explore. And then at the same time, I had all of these false starts. Oh, and then I also love pop culture conspiracy theories, like, Avril Lavigne died and was replaced with a double, or,
Wait, what? I
you know,
haven't heard that.
oh my gosh. I'm actually, like, writing a whole article about all these different pop culture theories, or like Jean-Benet Ramsey is actually alive and is Katy Perry all grown up. Like,
Oh
just
my gosh.
crazy stuff like that. So because everything I write is, like, a little surreal and a little weird, I knew I wanted to kind of have that kind of spirit somewhere in the story. And then, so there's that, and that's percolating for years and years in the back of my head as I'm writing other books. And then, meanwhile, I'm also reading a lot of, like, dark academia, and kind of like in the same way that I was with time travel before I wrote Oona, thinking, oh, I could never write my own, time travel story. There was part of me that was like, could I write a campus novel? Could I write something dark academia-ish? And what would that look like? And how would it be very different from everything else? And then, so then we have, like, these two little seeds, and they're kind of like moving together. And then at the same time, I knew that I wanted my next book to be about friendship. Like, it was just something innate, just like I knew the book I wrote after the Dollhouse Academy, I wanted to be like a dark and weird love story. And actually, I was thinking maybe it'll be the dark and weird love story, but I was like, no, friendship first. than the love story. And so it all sort of like, it was almost like all of these different little rivers flowing, and then finally there was the confluence where they all merged, and I was like, okay, yes, this, it's not just a boarding school, it's a showbiz boarding school. So because I wanted to age it up, I don't write YA. I wanted it to be, you know, grown up women who are kind of trying to make it big in showbiz. And then I really wanted, I didn't want it to just be superficial and just about, you know, like, oh, we want to be celebrities. I wanted it to be more about, you know, we're trying to make like our greatest dreams come true. And then at the same time, we're human beings, and the way that it tests not just like our ourselves and our very beings, but also our relationships.
Yeah, I really love how you explored those ideas of how much of yourself are you willing to give for your art or for success, for recognition of all of that work that you've done for the thing that you love, because I think that resonates a lot with us as writers as well, and for readers in general, right? Like there's a lot of us have these dreams, and it can cost a lot to get there, right? And so it is about that
Mhm.
balance. I thought you did such a beautiful job with that. Did you ever find yourself getting too immersed in the world? I had a dream the other night, actually 2 nights in a row, I have to tell you, where I woke up and I thought that I was one of the aspiring actors in the Dollhouse. And I was actually completely confused when I woke up. And then I felt such relief that I was in my normal life.
Wow, that's amazing. That's incredible. No, I think I definitely get caught up in research sometimes, just because I love going down all of these different rabbit holes. And then there's certainly, like, the story took a lot of different shapes, and I wrote three different outlines. So it looked three completely different ways, from version one to version two to version three. Like in the original version, Grace was a third voice. There was a POV that was her, and then, you know, like that got cut. And it just, it worked better, you know, just having Ramona and having Grace still very much a part of the story, but kind of folded into Ramona's experiences. So I would say, I mean, I always get immersed. Like for me, writing is always my happy place. So it was, I would say, like the smoothest process, kind of getting the story out. Like, sure, during revision, there was kind of like one big roadblock and then a very simple solution to it that just made everything fall into place. But I'd say like it was the smoothest in terms of like drafting the story, because it went through these different iterations that, you know, once we all landed on the outline that we were happy with, then it was okay, we're off to the races.
How do you know which perspectives to use and where to put them in? Because, like you said, you have Ramona and you have Ivy in this book. And I have noticed that, I don't know if you've noticed this, you have an affinity towards somewhat complicated narrative structures. So with Oona Out of Order, this is a woman whose entire life is chopped up, right? And so she's living her life chronologically out of order, but everyone else in the world around her has lived it in normal order. And so she doesn't know
Mm-hmm.
where she is. She's 21 one day, and then next she wakes up and she's in her 50s, you know, just to figure that out. And then in Acts of Violet, you've got Sasha with like present point of view, but then you also alternate with podcast transcripts from Cameron. And then now in the Dollhouse Academy, you've got Ivy, who's writing in a diary in present day, but reflecting on the past in some ways and bringing it to the present, dovetailing it with the present. And then you have Ramona, who's living this like in the present moment and learning about the Dollhouse Academy at the same time. How do you know when to do the past, when to do the present, which perspective that you should be telling the story from?
Oh, I love that question because, first of all, Evelyn, yes, I have noticed that I like complex narrative structures. And in fact, I have had a wall of Post-its. Like, and also in Asleep from Day, I have three different timelines. I have the timeline of like one single day that the main character can't remember. I have her post-amnesia timeline. And then this weird, she has these bizarre dreams throughout. So yeah, I had like color-coded Post-its for that and the spreadsheet. And then Oona, yeah, like Oona was just like, oh, this will be fun to revise. And then for Violet, I actually had like a murder wall with pins and strings and photos, and then just like timelines and things like that. So after all of that, the Dollhouse Academy was so simple compared to everything else. And honestly, a lot of it comes down to trial and error. And there were definitely some shifts. There were some diary entries that were, two diary entries that were condensed into one, and maybe there was like the reverse of one that was kind of broken up into two shorter ones. So it's really a matter of moving things around and seeing where they fit. And so I love that. I love just when it feels like puzzle pieces, and like for me, that's part of the fun of it. And that's yeah, and it's something that I'm going through now with my current novel, which started out with like 8 POVs and now has like 1 POV, but other weird stuff. So I think that that's something I'm going to sort of embrace, to challenge myself. One day I will write a novel from a single point of view with a single timeline, but I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon.
Honestly, I've been writing from multiple timelines and multiple perspectives. And sometimes it's easier because with just one perspective, you're limited in what they can know and where they can be. And I will often, at least at the end of a zero draft or a first draft, if I've only done one point of view, I find out I don't have enough words or pages to qualify as a novel, you know? And once I
Mm-hmm.
go in and I decide, okay, you know what, let's give this secondary character, like, not like the main story, but like a chapter here or there and like maybe a third character, it fills it out. It actually makes the story more robust. So
Mm-hmm.
has that been your experience?
100%. I feel like that's what gives it dimension, where you're seeing, especially, I love stories where you see the same thing happening from different perspectives. Like the last great book that I read like that was The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. And so you have, all of these, I mean, my goodness, how many POVs does that have? Like 10, 8. But it's all sort of centered around one thing. And at the same time, yeah, I love, it's like kind of like a relay race. You're passing the baton on, and you're the way that things that happen in the past influence the present. For me, it just adds so many interesting layers, and just like it's also just a lot of fun, I think, and it lets you play in different people's minds and lives, and just makes everything into like this great tapestry, I think.
Do you think that your ability to revise like that, to balance, figure out like, what strings to pull, which parts to delete, what to move around, do you think that's gotten better? Like you've just acquired a better skill, a better intuition about that as your career has progressed? Or is that still something that, that's kind of difficult to figure out?
I think it's twofold. It in some ways it's gotten better, but also I think I'm just very fortunate that I have an editor who just always seems to know exactly where to cut, where to expand. I Every single book I've written, I have felt like, oh my gosh, it is like completely done. I have trimmed all of the fat, and yet, at least the last 3 books with Flatiron, I have cut 10% thanks to editors that just found exactly, like where we can streamline and like make the voice and the story shine so much more because of that. So I see it as very much a collaborative process. I think it's helped me look for those places, but every writer has their blind spots. And I definitely could not do it on my own. And so I'm grateful that I have an editor that just really sees what the story needs and helps me find it too.
Oh, fantastic. Having a great editor, someone who really gets you it's magic. It's
Mm.
really magic. Okay, so a couple more questions for you before we wrap. At this point in your career, what are you looking forward to the most? Are you looking forward to like working on this next book and having some quiet time? Are you looking forward to going on tour? What is the thing you're looking forward to at this moment?
Oh, I mean, honestly, I'm about to go on a book tour for the Dollhouse Academy. So I'm very excited about that, because it's just that's sort of, what everything leads up to. We've like spent all of this time working on it and promoting it, and now like here it is in the world. So it's sort of just a really nice extended celebration. And plus, some of the places I go to, I have friends that in some cases I only see when I do book tours. So I'm really excited for those reunions. And then at the same time, I am more introverted than I am extroverted. So I am also very, very much looking forward to returning to the book that I'm writing, and just up until I started kind of the heavy promotional period for Dollhouse, I was in such a like magical place, just getting lost in the book. And it was just this haven for me. And so, but I know it's still there. And I just feel like it's this little comfort, this wonderful oasis that is waiting for me once I have the time to return.
Fantastic. Okay, and my last question is, if people want to come see you on tour or they want to find out more about you and your books, the Dollhouse Academy and your other ones, where are the best places that they can find you online? And I will include this in the episode notes.
Excellent. So there's my website, montimore.com, and my Instagram and Blue Sky. My username is Damiella, Damiella. And so I would say those are probably the three places where I post the most. Facebook, here and there. But yeah, definitely. And I'm very active in terms of making sure everybody knows about where I'm going to be and when. So I would love to see anybody who's willing to come out in person.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been so much fun. I've learned a lot. I'm sure our viewers and our listeners have learned a lot too. And make sure everyone go out and get a copy of the Dollhouse Academy.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. It's been my pleasure.
Want more writing advice and career insight? Join thousands for free at creativeinspiredhappy.com to go behind the scenes with best-selling authors and get access to our book club for writers, creativity challenges, and more. I can't wait to see you there.